Good afternoon, art students. This is Mr. Verzat, and today we are going to discuss how to draw things realistically. And when I say realistically, I mean photorealistically, how to make something look real. And that's what we call value drawing. And we're going to go a little deeper than the introduction that we've had already, and we're going to go into what's called implied line. It's basically the mortar that holds the bricks together in the house of photorealism. So, implied line. Well, we all know what a line is. Let's take a look at what an implied line is. And before we look at the picture, let's look at some of the definitions first. So what is an implied line? Well, the technical term is it's a line defined by its surrounding values. Value, once again, different shades of gray. Okay? A line is an imaginary symbol differentiating 2 points, technical word for creating an icon of something or helping our mind be able to tell the difference between two things. So if we were drawing a circle, it would be that line that helps our mind see the circle. So the word imply, what's that mean? Well, to imply something means to indicate something without specifically stating it. So to indicate something without specifically stating it, what's that mean? Well, let me try it. Let me try and do a little drama acting here for you. So if I were to say that if someone asked me if lunch was good, and with my words I said, yes, it was wonderful, but with my actions I did something else like this. Mr. Verzat, was lunch good today? And I would say, oh yes, it tasted great. I would be indicating something without specifically stating it through my body language. In that case, I was indicating that lunch tasted like really awful. So that's what an implied line is. You are actually indicating a form or a shape without actually going in there and drawing it. Let's take a look at a visual of what that looks like. Right here we have a picture of a triangle. But if you look at the writing in it, this white triangle doesn't have a single line defining its edges. And as far as lines, we're talking contour lines. It's true, there's not. All it is a giant mass of gray value with a triangle-shaped absence in the middle of it. There's no value there. Well, that's a great way to show what an implied line is. It's a drawing of a triangle without specifically drawing the triangle. And as a matter of fact, the way this triangle was drawn wasn't through specifically drawing the triangle. It was drawn by drawing everything around it. Interesting. So, how does that work? Well, let's take a look at some more characteristics of it. So the key to drawing realistically is by using implied line. Do you want to draw veins on a leaf, let's say? Well, what you would do is make everything around the veins darker, because veins sometimes can be very light. One of the ways to do that, shade the rest of the leaf a little bit darker everywhere, but where the veins are. Kind of like that triangle was drawn. There aren't any contour lines in it. Lines as we would define them, say, is like a line that you would do for a stick figure or for writing your name. There's none of that. It's only drawing with value, lights and darks and shades of gray. That means that you're covering your paper with lead or whatever you're drawing with, almost like you're painting, as a matter of fact. And believe it or not, this is what you do before you learn how to paint. Because if you're going to draw realistically, you do it in layers, step by step by step. Layers, and you'll learn as you go. We'll have a whole separate screencast on that. But if you want to learn how to paint well and do traditional like painting or any type of painting, native painting, postmodern painting, abstract, surrealist, anything cool, one of the best ways to learn how to paint is to learn how to draw first. So this is the first step up, and not only that, but you learn how to draw well. So if we look a little bit into lines as we draw them on paper, they don't actually exist in nature at all. This is the way to draw that's the closest to nature, to drawing what you actually see. In nature, there are only changes in value. There are no lines. If you think you see a line in nature, get up close to it, and you'll actually see changes in value. Like if you go up to a rock face and you see what looks like a line, it's just a void of light that gradually transitions. If you get a microscope and go up someplace where you think you see a line, say in the bark of a tree, then you would see just changes in value. There are no such things as real lines in nature. They're symbols, and this is the way to draw realistically because it's the closest to nature. by drawing just with changes in value. So here's the rule of thumb, and we'll get into it a little deeper in another screencast, but to make an implied line, you put a light thing next to a dark thing, or vice versa. So let's look at the triangle. The triangle in this case is a light thing, and the dark thing is everything around it. And we see the triangle through what's called contrast. Contrast, that's difference. That's a difference in value. That brings the triangle out. So, knowing that, moving right along, let's look at some examples. So, this is a picture of an ear, a furry ear from a still life that I did of a teddy bear that a student brought. And it was done in pencil using hatching. They're all individual strokes. And where are the contour lines? Where are they? This is a real zoomed in picture of it, but there are none. Granted, there are individual strokes with the pencil, but that's with any shading technique. There are no contour lines in this. So the way that you do a value drawing is that you, first of all, going back to our light source assignment, is you find out where the light source is at. That's the first thing that you do. And if you have your light source positioned, you can know where the light and the dark parts of your picture are. And that's the first step. The next is you start to add the values in, where they go, highlight, midtone, and shade. All right? And the cool thing about this ear right here is that I never, let's take a look at, say, the bottom edge of it. I never actually drew the bottom edge of the teddy bear's ear at all. I didn't use my pencil to draw the light areas right here. I mean, these little spots. What I did do was I drew the shadow that was behind it. And you'll learn that a little bit further on. So you draw with your values, not with lines. So, sounds pretty heavy, right? You're like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. Well, neither could I at some point. But I'll show you step by steps on how you can do it by using those steps and those techniques. So let's look at a non-example. This is a non-example of implied line. There's no implied line in this picture. This is a profile of a female head, and it's drawn using contour lines. Now there's a little bit of shading under the jaw and a little bit of hatching in the hair, but all in all, it's a contour drawing. It's drawn using lines, and that's the way that you and I learn to draw first, you know, from when we're little all the way up to, you know, if this is your first art class. So this is just an example of contour lines. You can get some great work with contour lines, but it doesn't look realistic. You can get some great portraits with realistic proportions in it, but you can't get realistic values in it and make for things to look real. So all in all, value drawing is the key to it. Learning how to control your implied line. Learning when to use light and when to use dark. How to use light and dark. Why to use light and dark in order to get different effects. And we're going to see some of that in another screencast. This is just an intro to it. We'll go a little deeper later on. But all in all, as with the usual screencasts, you know, if there's anything that you don't get, feel free to rewind it or ask me in class the next day. I'll look forward to seeing you, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.